Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf HaYomi, which is Nedarim Daf Lamed Tes. We are holding at the Mishnah Lamed Ches Amud Beis on the bottom, 2 lines from the bottom. Says the Mishnah, Hamud or Hano'ah Mechaberoi, if one may not benefit from his friend, V'nichnas L'vakro, and then he goes in to visit him when he is unwell. What is the correct way of doing Bikur Chaylim in this circumstance? Oymeid Aval Lo Yeshiv. He may stand while visiting, but he may not sit down. Why this difference? The Gemara will explain in great detail. Halacha number 2. Suppose he's a doctor. Can he go help him get better? Umerapai refuas nefesh. He can come to his personal aid to offer him medical assistance, but that's to the person himself, but not with respect to his animals. Avaloi refuas moment. Suppose his friend's animal needs some medical assistance. He may not perform veterinary aid to help his friend in this case because he's giving him hana. Now, let's go back to Bikur Chaylim. We have a mudur hana. You go visit, make sure to stand and not to sit. Now, who is the fellow usher to benefit from whom? Who is the mudar? Who is the person that cannot benefit from his friend? Is it the ill person who may not benefit from the mevaker, from the visitor, or the other way around? The mevaker, the visitor, is the mudar, meaning he may not benefit from the ill person. Which way is it? Asks the Gemara, but my askin, what exactly are we speaking about? Are the belongings of the visitor asur to the ill person, meaning the chayla is the mudar? Question is, afilu yeshiv nami. So why do we allow the visitor to come visit him? Isn't that giving him hana? He's comforting him. He's giving him kavod, giving him emotional support. So why is it mutter? Oh, the reason must be because the visitor is simply involved in a mitzvah. He's engaged in his own personal good deed. I'm not trying to give you hana. I'm trying to do a mitzvah that Hashem asked me to do. The fact that you are actually experiencing comfort and benefit as a result of this maaseh mitzvah, that's not my issue. So that being the case, what is the difference between coming in and standing or coming to visit and sitting down? It's all the same thing. Ultimately, it's a mitzvah that I'm doing. Says the Ran. Let's go to the Ran. What's the difference between sitting and standing? My time is shari. Why is standing allowed? Because when he's visiting, he's engaged in his mitzvah. Although the chayl is getting residual hana, that's okay. I'm not trying to give you, I'm trying to do my mitzvah. That's okay. That being the case, that we treat the maaseh as a maaseh mitzvah, and therefore it's mutter. So why can't he sit down for the same money, for the same reason? I'm doing a mitzvah, bikur chaylim. The fact that you're having hana, it's not my business. Continues the Gemara. Okay, so that's not an option. So suppose it's the other way around. The visitor, the mevaker chayla, he's on the receiving end of the nether. He's the mudar. He can't benefit from the nechasim of the chayla. If that's the case, how could he come in and stand? You shouldn't even enter standing up. Why? Says the Ran on line number 4. Fact is, he's entering his friend's property, having hana, being protected from the elements. Just because he's doing a mitzvah doesn't justify getting hana, which you're not allowed to get. Leslie, lisanu yimi surah. So the visit per se, his presence his strict presence, that is a mitzvah, but the hana that he's receiving by just standing there, by being protected and shielded from the rain and the sun, that's a side point. That's separate from the actual visit experience. And that's also to him. You can't take that from the chayla. So sitting, standing, it's all the same thing. It should be asr. Afilu oimid namilai. So we're stuck. Who's the mudar? If it's the chayla, and the reason why we allow bikur chaylim is because it's a masa mitzvah of all and have a seat. It's the same thing. If the mivaker, the visitor, is the mudar, there's an issue of drisas haregel. Whether he's sitting or standing, he's in his friend's property. He's having hana from being there. So why this difference between sitting and standing? Omar Shmuel, so Shmuel proposes as follows. Asurin ala chayla. We're speaking that the chayla is the mudar hana. He may not benefit from his visitor. But he can visit standing. Why? Ubemakim shenoitlen sechar ala yeshiva. We're speaking about a community where they accept payment for sitting with an ill person and spending time with him. In which case, when the visitor takes a seat and refuses payment, he forgoes that fee, he is actually benefiting the chayla directly by having him save this money. So sitting is asr, because you're foregoing that zachar. But standing is a different story. Ve'ein noitlen schar alamida, but they don't accept payment for going in and visiting while standing. It's just a by the way type of. You don't take money for that. That's actually the reason is because it's a mitzvah min haTorah. Sorry, it's a mitzvah min haTorah. To do bikur chaylim, you cannot take pay for that. You're not allowed to get paid for a mitzvah. How do we know? The Shita Mekabetzes brings B'Shemi Pirush, because Moshe Rabbeinu tells Klal Yisrael, I have given you over, I've conveyed to you the mitzvahs and everything, just as Hashem conveyed them to me. And we learned 2 days ago. It's in similar fashion, just like I received it free of charge. Ma'ani bechinam, af atem bechinam. Likewise, you engage in these things bechinam, whether it's the learning of the Torah or keeping the mitzvahs. So one may not accept payment for doing a mitzvah like bikur chayla. And therefore, when I walk into a chayla and I visit him in an upright standing, that is the basic, minimal bikur chaylam. For that, I may not receive payment, and therefore, when this fellow declines payment, he hasn't really saved the chayla anything, because he shouldn't be paying him at all. So there's no hana given to the chayla. But if he were to sit down, that's another step. That is not required min haTorah. That's not a chiyuv of bikur chaylim. And therefore, he's entitled to payment. And once he forgoes that payment, he's saving the chayla that money. In which case the chayla is getting a no. And that is the pshat in the Mishnah. So it's a mokim where they accept payment for yeshiva, but not for amida. My paska. Why are you being so, absolute about this? Meaning, who's to say that they accept for this and not for that? Maybe the other way. Like, why? And the Gemara explains, Hakam Ashmon, the Mishnah, in fact, is teaching us this interesting concept. Even a community where they do offer payment for visitors. Apparently in some communities, they didn't pay at all, even for sitting. The Ran says, because it can lead to cases where it's us. So, we're speaking about a place where they do pay, but still we have to be careful. You could only accept payment for sitting, which is not required in terms of the mitzvah. Ala yeshiva b'oila mishkal. It is proper to accept payment for sitting, spending that extra, investing that extra effort, sitting with him. Al hamida la b'oila mishkal. But if he's simply standing, for that you have no right to take payment. And therefore, the visitor who was madr, the chayla is the mudar, who may not accept anything from the visitor, he can visit him standing up. That's a mitzvah min haTorah. For that he he wasn't meant to accept payment to begin with. But sitting down, that's an issue, because if he's not going to accept payment for that, he's saving the chayla money, in which case he's having enough from the visitor, and that's us. That's pshat number one, in the name of Shemuel. Here comes another pshat. Perhaps we're speaking about a place where there's no schar offered for standing or for sitting. So what's the problem? Why can't he come and sit down? Kid Rab Shimon ben Elyakim. Just as he told us elsewhere regarding Shemitah, Gzeiro Shama Yisha Ba'amida. If you allow this fellow into the field to pick the fruit, he's not supposed to be there, he might overstay his visit, and that's a problem. Hachanam here as well, in our Mishnah of Bikur Chaylim, we have a similar concern. If he walks in standing, that's okay, because he sees he's not supposed to spend extra time, beyond the minimum, required time for mitzvahs Bikur Chaylim. Say 5 minutes is required to comfort the Chaylim, to look after his needs. First 5 minutes, that's the mitzvah. There's no issue of being mahana the chayla, because as we said before, it's just a mitzvah activity. So when you're standing, it's pretty plainly evident, it's obvious that you're usher to stick around too long. So you're not going to come to stay longer. But if you allow him to sit down, once you sit down, you might end up overstaying his minimum requirement, in which case he's going past the mitzvah territory, and that would be a problem, because that constitutes giving hanoah to the chayla. Gzeiro shemayashe b'yeshiva. If he takes a seat, he might overstay his visit, go beyond the mitzvah, boundary, and that's a problem. So bottom line is, Mishnah says a mudar hanoah may accept visitors standing up and not sitting down. Why? What's the difference? According to Shmuel, we're speaking the chayla is the mudar, in which case the visitor may not benefit the chayla. In teretz number 1, we're speaking about a locale where they accept fee, they accept payment for spending that extra effort sitting down with him and showing extra compassion. Therefore, you can't do that free of charge, because you're benefiting the chayla when you refuse payment. But standing up is this plain, simple mitzvah, which does not justify payment to begin with. Second teretz is, even if there's no payment in this town at all, don't take a seat, because you might overstay, you might stay beyond the mitzvah requirement, in which case you're giving him extra hanoah. And that being the case, you're really deserving of payment for that extra bit, right? So in this town, they don't accept payment for the mitzvah bikur chaylim, whether for standing or for sitting, because they say if you take for sitting, you might actually next time you might actually take payment for standing as well. So there's a minhag not to take payment, but that's for the actual bikur chaylim activity. But if you stay beyond, beyond the 5 minutes, let's say that's the required amount, stay beyond that amount, for that extra bit, you are entitled to payment, because it's beyond the mitzvah requirement. And now when he foregoes that payment for that extra bit, you are being mahana the mudar, you are being mahana the chayla. Therefore, don't sit down to begin with, lest you come to this concern. So that's Shmuel's pshat number 1 and pshat number 2. Ula Amar, he had a different track, different approach to the Mishnah. Lo'ila mishenichse chayla asur al mavakar. The visitor is the mudar. He might not benefit from the chayla. So what's the issue? The risas haregel, stepping into his friend's house, being protected from the elements, shielded from the sun and the rain, that's the concern. So then he shouldn't be going there to begin with. Why are you allowing him to going in and stay standing? Okay, going to loy adra min chayusei. The Ran learns that it's just an assumed thing. It's a stamma. It's understood that when the chayla tells this fellow to keep away, he did not mean to forego, the chayla did not mean to forego his own personal vital needs, such as having visitors when he's sick. He didn't mean that. He did not have that in mind. He was not madarim min chiyusei, from his things which interfere with his basic, vital, critical needs, such as having visitors when he's sick. That explains why the mevaker may enter his house to perform bikur chaylim, as long as he's standing. Why? If that's the case, let him sit down as well. Answer is, you don't need to sit down. You can be mevaker chayla standing. So when he excluded bikur chaylim from his neder, he meant only in as much as it's necessary for the fulfillment of the mitzvah to actually accomplish what you need to do when you're mevaker chayla. But past that is asur. So standing is okay. That's mitzvah's bikur chaylim, which was never included in the neder. He didn't have that in mind when he sent him off limits. But sitting down, that's beyond bikur chaylim. That is asur. So that's Ula's chiddush, which Shmuel disagrees with. Ula's mechadish, although the madir, in this case the chayla, sent his friend off limits, but he excludes anything which he needs personally, such as bikur chaylim, right? But there's a split. Basic bikur chaylim is excluded, but not more advanced bikur chaylim, such as sitting, that he wouldn't want him to do. Because that's recess a regal. That was not excluded, and therefore walking into this fellow's house, it doesn't justify. You're being nana from his house. Meisvei comes a kash. Chalahu nichnas levakri. If he himself fell ill, then the fellow can visit him. Chala benoi. But if his son falls ill, he can't enter his house. Shoyla b'shuk. He meets him in the street, and he can inquire as to his son's well-being. Now, this is fully understandable according to Ula's approach. Why? He learns that we're speaking that the visitor is the mudar, who can go into the le'adar mechayusei. The reason why he can come visit is because he didn't have this in mind. He never meant, don't come visit me when I'm sick. Shaper, so it makes sense. When I'm sick, don't come. You can come visit, but my son, there's no heter for that. His own critical needs he had in mind, but his son's he was mindful of that. And therefore, he never allowed for this mavakar to come visit and enter his property for his son's sake. And that's why when he's ill, he can come visit, but his son, you can't come visit. According to Shmuel, that's the other way around. He interpreted the Mishnah as speaking where the chayla is the mudar, and still standing is okay because it's just a mitzvah. That's the basic fulfillment of bikur chayla. That's not called giving him hana. It's just being mekayim a mitzvah. Whereas sitting down is not really required on account of the mitzvah bikur chaylim, and therefore foregoing that schar would be a problem, etc., etc. So according to Shmuel, what's the difference? Who's the chayla? Ma'ishna who? Who ma'ishna b'noi? What's the difference whether he himself is sick or his son? What's the difference? Coming to visit the son ba'amida is not considered giving him hana. He's just doing the mitzvah bikur chayla. Right? So according to Ula, it makes sense. Because the visitor is the mudar. He's not meant to step foot in the chayla's house. It's just as for the sake of visiting, it was never included in the neder. His visiting, but visiting a son, that was included. But according to Shmuel, who makes that distinction between standing, which is considered a fulfillment of the mitzvah, whereas sitting is not, it's already doing an extra service which justifies payment, and foregoing that payment is giving him the hana. So why is there a difference between father and son? Either way, standing is mutter and sitting is asr. Amalek, so Shmuel responds, you're right. I wasn't talking about the price. Mas Nissen. When we spoke about the Mishnah, there I explained that it's speaking that the chayla is on the receiving end of the net. He's the mudar. as we explained. So therefore, standing is mutter, but sitting is asa because you're giving him that extra. You're right, the brisa that we just mentioned, which draws the line between father and son, is indeed speaking in the reverse situation. But the mavaker is meant to stay off limits, stay off property. He's the mudar. You have no business in the chayla's house. But if it's for the sake of providing the chayla's basic needs, like visiting him, the chayla never meant to include that in his neder. But his son, no. His son doesn't have that same dispensation. So bottom line is that in terms of the brisa, all agree that we're speaking that the mevaker has no business in the chayla's house, walking in the Idris HaSeregel, which is asur. But when it comes to explaining the Mishnah, we have two ways. Either Ula's approach or Shmuel's approach. According to Shmuel, the Mishnah is speaking the other way around, that the chayla is the mudar. Asks the Gemara, how do you know? My pascha, what led Shmuel to that understanding that the Mishnah is speaking about where the chayla is the mudar, as opposed to the brisa, which is speaking where the mavaker is the mudar? Where did he see that in the Mishnah? Very simple. Amar Rava Shmuel masnis and kashus. Shmuel found the wording of the Mishnah to be a bit difficult to understand. Why? Because Shmuel figured that if the chayla is the madir, I don't want him in my house. Still, when it comes to bikur chayim, I let him in. That's chiyusay. It's my critical need. And that was never included in the neder. If that's the reason, if that's the reason for this exception, says Shmuel, we assume he allows him in and allows him to sit down as well. He's not makbid that he should just stand. It's also chiyusay de chayla. Come sit down, spend time with me. It's also included in the exception to the rule. If that were the situation, that the chayla is the madir and the mavaker is the mudar, the issue is walking into the chayla's house, and we make an exception for bikur chayla because that was he was never including that in the isser. My area the tani oimid. So why is it only standing, which is allowed? Aval lo yesha, but he can't sit down. Why? What's the difference? Visiting him was never included in the neder. Whether it's sitting or standing is benefiting him. It's providing his, basic vital needs. Oh, that led Shmuel to interpret the Mishnah differently than Ula, because if this was the basis, this was the basis for the halacha, there would be no room for distinction between sitting and standing. Apparently, it's the other way around. The chayla is on the receiving end of the name. He's the mutar. The issue is that the mavaker is benefiting the chayla, not the other way around. And in this case, we can certainly differentiate between sitting and standing, because being mavaker chayla in a very basic, elementary mode, as in a standing mode, that's a kiyum mitzvah, and no more. It's strictly kiyum mitzvah, and that's okay. Whereas if it's more advanced, like in a sitting position, showing more companionship, etc., that's going beyond the letter of the mitzvah. And that's called being mahana de chayla. Okay, let's just summarize this Amid Gemara. We had a Mishnah which allows bikur chaylim between a madar and a mudar in the following circumstance. Aymid is mutter, Yoshev is asur. We have Shmuel's approach and Ula's approach. According to Shmuel, the chayla is the mudar, he can't benefit from the visitor. According to Pshat number 1, the reason why Aymid is mutter, because that's something which you do for free, it's a mitzvah. There's no salary to forego, there's nothing that you're giving the chayla except for a mitzvah. Whereas Yeshiv is a problem because that is usually paid for, and by foregoing that fee, you're saving him that money. Pshat number 2 is that even in a place where they don't accept payment for yeshiva, everything is done for free. Still, we have a difference between Aymid, which is done for free and therefore it's mutter, whereas by Yeshiv, there is a gzeira that he might sit extra time, spend extra beyond the basic requirement for bikur chaylim, in which case now he's entitled to payment for that extra, and foregoing that is considered giving him hana. Ula's approach is that the mavaker is the mudar hana. So how could he go in and be mavaker chayla? Because when he's standing, that's the basic mitzvah, that's chiyusei, and the chayla never had this in mind. But that only applies to the father, not to the son's visitation, receiving visitors. Regarding yoshev, that's asur, because sitting, that's not basic elementary need of the chayla. It's a more advanced, enhanced visit, and that was included in the neder, and therefore he can't be doing that because he's stepping into the house. He's doing juices regularly, spending the extra, the extra use of the home is considered hana for the mavakar. And apparently Shmuel disagrees. He holds that once the mother excludes any things which are needed and are called chiyusei, such as visiting. So accepting visitors when he's ill, in a standing mode, in a sitting mode, it's all the same thing. In which case there would be no concern of the visitor being doing drisas regel. So he did not like this pshat, and therefore he chose his approach to the Mishnah. Okay, continuing further on the topic of bikur chaylim. Amr Ish Lakish, remez lebikur chaylim nater minayin. Where do we find an open remez, a specific indication that bikur chaylim is a mitzvah? Shenemarim kemois kol adam yimusan eila. Of kudas kol adam v'chulu. Moshe Rabbeinu declared, Hashem, Kairach and his cohorts, if they leave the world conventionally, the way it's ordinarily done, then it isn't necessarily going to prove anything. But if it happens in a supernatural manner, that proves the point. My mashma, how do we see from here anything to do with bikur chaylim? Amar Rav, im kemois kol adam yimusan eila means like this: they die like anybody else. Shein chaylim umatal marisasam, they fall ill, they lie in their beds. Ubnei adam mevakrin oisam, they accept visitors, and they die in that fashion, which is conventional. Ma abriyas imr, what's everybody going to claim? Lo Hashem shlachani, I was not sent by Hashem. There's nothing out of the ordinary that happened. Lo Hashem shlachani lezeh. So apparently, that is the way of the world. People fall ill, they accept visitors, and then they pass away. So we see the concept of bikur chaylim in the Torah. Of course, the Rambam says that bikur chaylim, along with levayas hameis, mesamechas mekala, are all mitzvahs which are included under the general umbrella of ahavta l'reacha kamecha. Darash Rava in Bria Yivra Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu says, if Hashem creates something new, what does this mean? What does Yivra Hashem will create? Im Brua Gehenim. There's a girsa Brua. If Gehenim was already been created, mutrav, okay, so that can be used to punish them. Tiya, fine. Vim lav. But otherwise, if it's not yet around, Yivra Hashem, Hashem should create it now to address this machlekes. Eini, is that the case that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't sure whether Gehenna was created yet? Vatani, we have a brisa. Of course, it was created before the world was created. Gehenna was already there. Shiva dvaram nivru kaidim shenivra elam. The following 7 things were there before the world. Elohein Torah, v'tshuva, Gan Eden, v'Gehenna, Kisei HaKavod, Beis HaMikdash, u'Shmai Mashiach, the essence of Mashiach. So all these things are the goals, the purposes, the objectives of Bria Olam. The point is to saturate oneself with Torah, to end up in Gan Eden. Hashras HaShechina, Beis HaMikdash. All these things are the tachas of the world, and they predated the world. Ran learns that they were all over machshava. These things were already planned before the world. First, you set the goal, so to speak, you set the destination, then you build the road to get there. But he says, when it comes to Gehenna, it certainly preceded the world. In actuality, it was there because that only that will ensure that people comply. It's like before first you build a jail, before you build a city, to ensure compliance, ensure properly functioning civilization. So clearly, Gehenna predated the world. So how can we have a suffix if it was there or not? So what do we find? That these things preceded the world. Says the Gemara Torah, Hashem kanani reishis darka. Hashem acquired me. This is the Torah speaking. He acquired me reishis darka way back when. Tshuva, Dechsiv terem ha'im miladu, Dechel eretz v'sevel, Tashav enashad darka. So before the mountains were formed, we already have the concept of teshuvah. Hashem knows that people have pitfall, people fall, and Hashem enabled them to come back. So this was pre-programmed into the system, teshuvah. What about Gan Eden? Dechsiv vayita Hashem Elokim Gan be'eden mikedem. So mikedem, instead of meaning in the east, here the drasha is mikedem from way back before the world. What about Gehenim? Dechsiv ki oroich me'esmal tifte. Tifte is a reference to Gehenim. The Gemara in Shabbos learns, Kol ha-mespat, in Erevin, Kol ha-mespata bi-yitzra yipol. Some person is led astray by his Yetzer Hara. He falls into Gehenim. So the Tifte was already set up me'esmal from before. What about the Kisei HaKavod? Dechsiv nochen kisacha mi'oz is already arranged before, way back when. Beis HaMikdash, Dechsiv Kisei HaKavod, Mora Mirishon, from way back. Shmoy Shel Mashiach, Dechsiv Yishmoy La'olam, is a reference to Mashiach's name. And the pasuk continues, L'fnei Shema Shina and Shemoy. So Yishmoy La'olam. So La'olam. So it's been there since La'olam, since the beginning of the world. So bottom line is, Gehenna was there before. What's the question of when Gehenna was created? Why is Moshe Rabbeinu unsure? Elochikam, rather, of course he knew Gehenna existed, but he was saying like this: I ivrlei puma muta. What about an opening, a channel into Gehenna? So if the puma, if the mouth of Gehenna is already available, fine. We don't need to create it. But otherwise, if it's not yet there, it's not yet accessible, even Hashem created so that we can have a direct channel from here into Gehenna. Asks the Gemara about Ksiv, creating new things. Pasuk indicates that Hashem doesn't create anything past the 6 days of creation. So why was he requesting a new creation? He just meant like this: if the mouth, the opening of Gehenna is not accessible, it's not close by, Likra, please bring it closer. So it's not really a new creation, it's just bringing over an existing phenomenon. Dorash Rava, some say Amar B'Yitzchak. What does the pasuk mean in Chavakuk, where the pasuk discusses the events that happened after Yetzias Mitzrayim, and it says Shemesh Yoreach Omad Zvula. What does that mean? The question is, Shemesh V'Yoreach, the sun and the moon, B'Zvul? My boy, what are they doing in the Zvul section of the heavens? That's way up there. They're meant to be down here in the Rekia. Why did they relocate to the Zvul? Malamed is teaching us Sha'olu Shemesh V'Yoreach Mirakia. They traveled from their abode to the Rekia, which is the second level of Shemaim, all the way up L'Zvul, way up there, beyond. Why were they going there? And they turned to Hashem and they said, Ribono shel olam. This is when the Adas Kerech was ganging up on Moshe Rabbeinu, and they said, look, if you exert judgment on behalf of Moshe Rabbeinu ben Amram, you punish his detractors, Ona Me'irim will continue radiating our light. But otherwise, Ona Me'irim, we stay up here in the Zvul, nobody will see us. At that point, Hashem shot at them arrows and spears. Amalam, he tells them like this: why are you suddenly so concerned? On every single day, all the goyim bow to you, treat you like avodah zorah, and you don't hesitate to continue doing your job, radiating light and warmth. You haven't taken the trouble to protest on my behalf, on behalf of my honor, Hashem's honor. Suddenly you're protecting Moshe Rabbeinu's honor? Go back and do your job. Going forward, every single day, Hashem forces them. He shoots at them, the chitzim and the chanitos, and that forces them to do their job to light up the world. So the Ur is because of the chitzim of Hashem. Tanya, we've learned in a brayso. Bikur Cholim, Ein Lo Shir. Bikur Cholim is such a great mitzvah, it has no limit. What does that mean? My Ein Lo Shir. Savar Rav Yosef Lemay figured, Ein Shir L'matan Schar. Its reward is limitless. Go grab every opportunity for Bikur Cholim. Amalei Abaye. Why are we highlighting Bikur Cholim as a great opportunity to get schar? Who are we to measure schar of a specific mitzvahs? Who are we to compare Bikur Chaylim to other mitzvahs? V'chol mitzvahs miyesh shir l'matan schar, and to another mitzvah, is there a shir? But now we have a Mishnah, a person should be careful, be meticulous in all mitzvahs. Be mitzvah kala, in a mitzvah which seems to be easy and light and not so important, be careful, fulfill it. Kibba chamura, have the same attitude as you would have with a more heavyweight mitzvah. You never know. A person never knows which mitzvah generates which schar. So how can you make that statement that Bikur Chaylim is this limitless schar? We don't know what's going on in terms of schar. Elam Rabbaye, afilu godel etzel katan. It's unrelated to reward. Bikur Chaylim ein lo shir simply means like this. Even a person who's older, more respected person, should trouble himself to visit a person of lesser stature, a younger person. It's a mitzvah Bikur Chaylim. It's not beneath your dignity to visit a katan. Rav Amar afilu mei pamim b'yom. Ein lo shir means go back even 100 times a day, as per the chayla's need. There's no limit. Amar b'achbar chanya, listen to something very astounding. Kol mavakir chayla, a person who visits an old person, noitel echad mishishim b'tzarei. He has the ability to remove, to deduct 1/60th, one small portion of his illness. There's a gersa noitel echad mishishim b'mecholyoy. Amr Leisa, they asked the question to Rachbar Chanina. If it's so easy, just get 60 people to come in, and there he goes. He's all better. Im Kain, if that's the case, Li Alon Shitim, let 60 people come in, but look more and get him better. Just like that, instantly. Amr Leisa says it doesn't work so fast. It's all percentages. Kisur Yaisa, the baby Rebbe, it's like the 10th of Rebbe. Rebbe discusses the Nedunya requirement that, a father passes away and the daughters are entitled to draw their wedding expenses from their father's assets. You get 1/10 of whatever's there. That just because you have 10 kids, they're not going to get all, 1/10, and there goes the entire estate, leaving nothing for the boys. Rather, it's all, subsequential, meaning first kid gets 10%, the next kid gets 10% of the remaining assets. The third kid, likewise, 10% of what's remaining behind, and so on and so forth. Likewise, over here, one person walks in, removes 1/60th, next fellow, 1/60th of the remaining chayli, etc., etc. It takes a while till we get it down to where we want it to get to. But says the Gemara, it's not pertaining to everybody. Ubi ben giloy, only if the visitor is of similar nature. The Ran says shenoilad hamevaker b'mazol shel chayla. They were born under the influence of the same star, the same mazel. So what's so special about that? So the Shita Mekabetzes brings something interesting. He says because then you can relate more closely, more personally. You have a similar nature, a similar constitution. You have the ability to really share the ill person's burden and carry his emotional load. And he sees that you're relating to him, and that allows him to to feel relief. So by alleviating him emotionally, you are actually relieving him physically as well, and bringing somewhat of refuah, of remedy to his physical illness. Isn't that amazing? His mood can affect his illness. So that seems to be the pshat in this Gemara. That going in there and relating to him and empathizing with him. And only the Ben Gila has the real ability to do that properly. Speaks his language, talks his talk, feels his feelings, and therefore it has this profound effect. Amazing. And the Rashi actually learns a bit differently. The Mefarish, he says, Bachor kamoise zaken lazaken, similar age. An older person can relate to an older person, a young person, a younger person, and it has that effect of removing 1/60th of his illness. So we mentioned the Suryaisa de Rebbe, this 10% of Rebbe, the Sanya, which is found in the following price. Rebbe Omer Bas Hazoinis Nechse Achen, father passes away, and the daughter is supported by her father's assets, by the brother's Rirusha. That's one of the Tnai Ksuba. It's a stipulated in Ksuba that she has the right to get that. They tell us Isu Nechasa, when she is prepared to marry, she's entitled to 10% of the remaining assets for her wedding expenses, for her dowry expenses. So they asked Rebbe, according to your formula, you're going to end up with no money. Suppose a person passes away, leaves behind 10 daughters, each one's entitled to 10%, uben with one poor son. right? So then they take everything away. There's nothing left for him. You mean to say the son is left with nothing? Each kid walks away with 10%, leaving the son with nothing? Is that so? Amar he says, no, absolutely not. There's a safe formula to follow, which ensures that something's left behind for the son, for the Yerusha. Rishana, the first girl, Neteles Isur Nechasim. She takes 10% of the assets. Shnia, the second girl, B'masha Shira. She takes 10% of the remainder. Shlishis, Masha Shira, the third one as well. And since they all came to marry at the same time, what they have to do is they have to re-divide everything. So basically, first kid gets 10%, puts it aside. Second kid, 10% of the remainder. Third kid, likewise. But the first kid can't unfairly walk away with a greater portion than the second kid because they're all married together. That's the case. They're coming to take it b'vasacha. So we take all those separation, all those portions which we separated. It was just a way to formulate what's deserving to the kids, to the girls. We take all that, we put it together in one pot again, and we redivide it equally so each kid gets an equal portion of that, a cumulative amount. Okay. So bottom line is, we learned the sugya of Bikur Chaylim. So in case of a mother with a mudar, Mishnah says only standing is allowed while visiting but not sitting. We have Shmuel's approach, we have Ula's approach. So according to Shmuel, we're speaking, the Chayle is the mudar. He cannot benefit from the mevaker. So that explains why he could walk in standing, because remaining standing is simply a mitzvah Bikur Chaylim. It's not called a hana to the Chayle. This is just a spiritual pursuit which the mevaker is engaged in. And we don't really care that the Chayle is getting a residual hana. The Maisa is not a Maisa hana, it's a Maisa mitzvah. The fact that he feels good and he has covered, that's not called a hana, a significant hana, which is asr by mudar hana. Sitting is problematic because they would take pay for that, and foregoing that pay is giving him, is allowing him to save that money. That's a real hana. According to the second shot, even in a place where they don't take payment, but there's a gzera, because if you sit, you might overstay that visit past the mitzvah requirement, and that's problematic because declining payment for that is considered giving the chayle a hana. According to Ula, it's the other way. The mavaker is the mudar, but the chayle never had a mind, to keep away visitors. It wasn't included in the neder. And that is regarding standing, but sitting is already beyond the basic requirement. That is included, and therefore he can't go in there because he's benefiting. He's doing drisas aregel by finding himself in his fellow's property. Bikur Chaylim is alluded to in the pasuk of Kudas Kal Adam. A person who falls ill expects visitors. It's a mitzvah min haTorah, as the Rambam says. The Rabbanim explained to us that all these are included in mitzvahs v'aftarech kamaycha. We spoke about the 7 items that predated Briyas Ha'olam because they constitute the goal and the purpose of the Bria. We learned about the importance of Bikur Chaylim, even a gadol to a katan, even me'ah pa'amim as per need, and the concept of removing a 60th of the Chayli when it's done right. May Hashem give us much hatzlacha and gesund until 120. Hatzlacha Rabbah.